So now we look at Jochebed. I hope I got her name right. It's Jochebed, I think. So Jochebed was Moses' mother. We don't get to hear much about her, but I think she's a critical pillar to the emancipation of the Israelites from the land of slavery, which is Egypt. And it's important to see that Moses was always the deliverer, even while he was in Egypt as one of the sons of Pharaoh, adopted by Pharaoh's daughter. In verse 11 of chapter 2, it says that he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his people. He looked this way and that, and seeing no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. When he went out the next day, behold, two Hebrews were struggling together. And he said to the man that did the wrong, Why do you strike your fellow? He answered, Who made you a prince and a judge over us? Notice the very thing that the mockery was, who made you, is exactly what Moses came back 40 years later to become. He was a prince and a judge. Do you mean to kill me as you killed the Egyptian? Then Moses was afraid, and he thought, surely the thing is known. When Pharaoh heard of it, he sought to kill Moses. And of course he fled. But just a little bit of background on Moses. Moses was born at a time where the Israelites were beginning to become not just a nuisance, but a threat to Pharaoh and his kingdom in Egypt, because they were so numerous. And sheer numbers at the time meant domination. And so Pharaoh, in verse 22 of chapter 1, commanded all his people, Every son that is born to the Hebrews you shall cast into the Nile, but you shall let every daughter live. So why is he doing that? He wants to reduce the number of male children and reduce the risk of them taking over his kingdom by sheer numbers, right? Because they could easily have an uprising against him and take over Egypt. But now it says that in chapter 2, it says, A man from the house of Levi went and took a wife, a daughter of Levi. The woman conceived and bore a son. And when she saw that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months. Now notice this is in the middle of Pharaoh's decree. Now you notice in the Bible there's a constant political unrest when a type of a Messiah is about to be born. There's normally a political shakeup where the politician of the day feels insecure. We see that even in the birth of Jesus Christ. When Herod is so insecure, he demands or commands all the boys aged around Jesus' age to be killed. And so Joseph, Jesus' father, has to move after he's told in a dream by an angel to move to Egypt. He packs in the morning and they're off to Egypt. So, and when she could hide him no longer, it says she took for him a basket made of bulrushes and daubed it with bitumen and pitch, and she put the child in it. So this is a woman taking a risk with her baby because she will not let him be killed. Obviously, as a mother, you will not allow that. So she takes bulrushes, I think are like reeds, and bitumen. And what she does is actually to place this among the reeds in the river. And she sends her daughter to stand at a distance to see what will happen. Now, needless to say that she's taking a huge risk. But the good thing is that Pharaoh's daughter had come down to bathe, and her maidens were walking beside the river and saw the basket among the reeds, and she sent her maids to fetch it. And when she opened it, she saw the child, and lo, the baby was crying. So she took pity on him and said, This is one of the Hebrews' children. Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, Shall I go and call a nurse from the Hebrew women to nurse the child for you? Of course, she didn't disclose that she was the baby's sister. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, Go. So the girl went and called the child's mother, and Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child away and nurse him for me." So unknown to Pharaoh's daughter, this is actually the mother. "Nurse him for me, and I will give you your wages." So Jochebed got paid to take care of her own son. And it says, Jochebed by faith, in my book I write this. Moreover, Jochebed by faith was crazy enough to hide her son for 3 months. It takes boldness to say, you know what, I'm going to take whatever measures I need to take to protect this destiny. What women need to realize, mothers especially, is they need to protect a destiny, not just a physical child who is born, goes to school, gets married, has children, and then dies. That's not what you're protecting. You should be protecting the God-given destiny over this child. What are they meant to do in life? So she had this destiny to protect, and she knew it. She saw in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 23, because she saw that he was a beautiful and divinely favored child, and were not afraid. She was not afraid of the king's decree, her and her husband. They were not afraid. Jochebed and her husband seemed to preempt the eventual role that Moses would take in saving the lives of his kinsmen who were living in bondage. Notice that they thrust him into his future in uncertainty. But in so doing, they helped him to overcome the uncertainty that he would enter in as a redeemer of his people, and helped to give them stability even among very choppy waters of political, discrimination. He was a survivor himself from execution as a baby. So this daughter of Pharaoh says, "I will take this child away and nurse him for me, and I will give you your wages." So the woman took the child and nursed him, and the child grew, and she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. Notice she nursed him on the behalf of Pharaoh's daughter, which guaranteed him survival, but also education, culture. It exposed him to the ways and dispositions of kinship. He was a prince. Actually, exactly what the man asked him, "Who made you prince over us?" He was actually a prince over them, but unofficially, not yet officially. So I conclude this little snippet here, and I say the child Moses was way too precious to God to allow him to be abandoned. Remember, God knew Moses' destiny as a baby in a basket on top of the Nile. God was aware of his destiny. And though he was abandoned in that Nile, God orchestrated that his mother would have certain traits that would guarantee his survival, including that tenacity, that wisdom, that faith. You could add the prayerfulness, the fact that she was of the tribe of Levi, all that stuff. She grabbed every opportunity to save her son because she was already walking in faith in keeping and hiding him in the first place. Okay, so we need to be bold to boldly protect the destinies of our children. And I go on to say, Jochebed grabbed the opportunity to raise a holy lineage from salvaging what the enemy was bent on destroying. You must keep what God gave you, no matter how little, because it will not only grow big someday, meaning the small beginnings in God's hands. It shows that in God's hand, anything can be stewarded to greatness. And I say, but God will also steward it to be a weapon in his hands, a weapon. It says, God says, "You are my battle axe." In God's hands, Moses was his battle axe. He used Moses to afflict the slave drivers and those who had actually enslaved his people. The bonds, what are they called? Those who had held the Israelites in bondage, the jail keepers, the gatekeepers to the freedom of the Israelites. And Moses became ruler and also delivered the children of Israel from Egypt, as we see in Acts 7:35. This Moses, it says in Acts 7:35, this Moses whom they rejected, saying, who made you a ruler and a judge, is the one God sent to be a ruler and a deliverer by the hand of the angel who appeared to him in the bush. Okay, so that's Jochebed for you, protecting the destiny of her son, knowingly or unknowingly, but she protected the destiny nonetheless by ensuring that his life was preserved. And through her attempt, God used his power and gave it turbo boosting and catapulted Moses to his destiny. So may you also protect the destinies of your children. But for now, we're going to now look at the next character, who is Ruth. See you in a bit.